What's going on, everybody? C4 here, and welcome back to the 32-team 7-round mock draft series. And today, we're going to be taking a look at a team that holds on to the 9th pick in the first round of the upcoming draft. The team that got the team that almost got Antonio Brown in free agency, and that is the Buffalo Bills. Now, I troll a little bit, but I did come out and say, and I have a public responsibility to uphold my prediction as the Buffalo Bills being the C4 Dark Horse team. The last 2 years, my Dark Horse team, which is always a team that didn't make the playoffs, has gone on to make the playoffs the following year. 2 years ago was the Jacksonville Jaguars. Last year was the Chicago Bears. I put that faith in the Buffalo Bills. When I thought they were getting Antonio Brown, I was like, oh yeah, looking real smart. And then when they all ended up getting like Cole Beasley and Frank Gore, little bit worried, but if they draft well, hey, they have a legitimate shot. Now, I'm never going to make a bold claim that they could win the division. I mean, the Patriots are still the Patriots, but I think there's a legitimate shot. They can put it all together, go on a nice little run, and contend for that AFC wildcard spot. So, how do they do that? Well, at pick number 9, please, Lord baby Jesus, do this pick. I am selecting Ed Oliver, defensive tackle from Houston. Now, I'll come out the bat right now. Everyone knows I'm an Eagle fan. I've actually seen a lot of mock drafts have the Philadelphia Eagles getting Ed Oliver. If that happens, I'm someone that hates salads. I will videotape myself eating 3 salads. If somehow, some way, Ed Oliver slips to the Eagles at 25, and Ed Oliver's still on the board at 25, you better believe Philly is sprinting up to that goddamn selection table and bringing in Ed Oliver. I think he should go top 10 for sure. And yes, I get he's a little bit of an awkward prospect, a little bit undersized, but I am dying on the hill that Ed Oliver is the best player in this year's draft class. An absolute robbery for the Buffalo Bills to get him here at number 9. When you look at their defensive line, Kyle Williams has retired. He can come in as a replacement. Star Lotulelei is one of the worst contracts in the NFL. There is an out at the 2021 season, so again, you could be forward thinking about the 4 years you're going to get Ed Oliver, maybe even 5 if you want to keep him on that last year, pick up his option. But Ed Oliver is an absolute game wrecker. I think Sean McDermott is a very creative defensive coordinator and will find ways to use Ed Oliver. You use him at D tackle. You can use him at defensive end. I mean, there was some, hey, Tennessee Titans want to work out Ed Oliver at linebacker. Well, hey, Sean McDermott might be able to have a little package. You have Ed Oliver line up at linebacker, and you try to get him lined up on a tight end or a running back. Good night. But just looking at the production for Ed Oliver at Houston, 53 tackles for losses in 32 games. And he was a guy that was getting triple teamed like every single game because you're going up against the Houston D-line. There's only 2 guys you have to worry about covering, and one of them is Mr. Ed Oliver. So they would just constantly have double teams, triple teams, and he still was just a freak of nature and put up uber production. I think this would be a home run here for the Buffalo Bills sitting at pick number 9 and just a massive get for their defense. And I think they probably will. I mean, there's some people saying they could go wide receiver. They could go DK Metcalf if he's still on the board, which obviously you're paying attention to my mock draft. He's not. He went to the Jacksonville Jaguars. They could go offensive line. Yeah, there's some nice tackle prospects they could get, but Sean McDermott's a defensive guy, and I think if Ed Oliver still is there at 9, he's going to say, I don't care what anyone says, I'm putting my veto in, we're getting Ed Oliver at pick number 9. And then moving into the second round, they do help out the offense here, because I do think now, after you get Ed Oliver, it is paramount to help and put weapons around Josh Allen. At pick 40 in the second round, they select Yodny Kajust, offensive tackle from West Virginia. A lot of people think he has the upside to play left tackle. Usually you start out tackles that are developing, though, at right side, just so you're not responsible for protecting the QB's blind side. But I think Dion Dawkins is best suited to be a right tackle. I always thought that when he was coming at Temple. So, I mean, either way, Yodny Kajust and Dion Dawkins at tackle, there is a lot of upside there. And, you might have your franchise tackles in place along with your franchise quarterback. You hope so. And I think Yodny Kajust is a day 1 starter at either tackle spot here for the Buffalo Bills. This position that they got some veterans in free agency, Nsekhe, Adrian Waddle. They brought in Jake Fisher from the Bengals, who's like a second-round pick from Oregon, but I guess now he's trying to be a tight end. Sure, why not? But they definitely need to solidify that other tackle spot that's not Dion Dawkins. I think Yodny Kajust here in the second round is a great value pick, and I do believe he will be a day 1 starter. Moving into the third round, pick 74, a very risky pick, but I think a pick that will eventually pay dividends here for the Buffalo Bills. I have them selecting Dawson Knox, tight end from Ole Miss. Now, it is a gamble because he has not a whole lot of production at Ole Miss. It was tough to get looks to go his way when they had DK Metcalf. They had A.J. Brown, when you have DeMarcus Lodge. But I think he certainly has an incredibly high ceiling. I think he's the second best athlete at the tight end's position after Noah Fant. He's just a mismatch, and I think he can develop into Josh Allen's security net at that tight end spot. They moved on from Charles Clay. They brought in Tyler Kroft from the Bengals. I mean, there's only so much he can do. I wouldn't kind of think that Tyler Kroft signing says we're not looking for a franchise tight end. So I think he's a nice part of rotation as we saw him in Cincinnati. But you need more, especially when it comes to getting another receiving weapon. And I think that is going to be Dawson Knox. I think he has upside to develop as a blocker, maybe become a complete weapon. But just when you look at the Buffalo Bills, you have a bunch of niche guys right now on this roster. John Brown, he's niche. He has one thing he's good at. Zay Jones, I guess Zay Jones, he's still trying to find himself. Cole Beasley, niche. He's clearly a slot. Get a guy that can just cause havoc. There's easier ways to stop everyone that is a niche player. And it's, especially when you're trying to look at that big dog in your division and the best coach ever at solving one-dimensional players. So, I'm looking at Buffalo. A guy like Dawson Knox can cause a lot of headaches for Bill Belichick and that Patriots defense. And that's ultimately kind of what you have to play against and think about more so than any other division in football is how, if in the AFC East, can you knock off the New England Patriots? I think a weapon like Dawson Knox, if he can hit his potential, that is a big get and a big-time advantage long-term for the Buffalo Bills. Moving into the 4th round, they have 2 4th-round picks. First up at 112, I was selecting Anton Wesley, wide receiver from Texas Tech. He is your traditional height, weight, speed wide receiver that the Bills really are currently lacking at their wide receiver room. Like I said, you got John Brown, fast guy. Zay Jones, jack of all trades. Cole Beasley, slot. You got Robert Foster, showed some flashes last year, but they don't really have that height, weight, speed. And look at Wesley's stats last year. He's 6'5", 190 pounds-ish, 88 catches, 1,400 yards, 9 tutties. He's just another weapon that Josh Allen continually needs to get the support from the Buffalo Bills front office. They keep bringing in weapons. Stop. You got to start investing. You can't just keep hoping that, we're going to find a Robert Foster every year. We're going to find, oh my God, Keith Ford, Marcus Murphy. There's games that Josh Allen literally was the entire offense. That can't be the case anymore. And I think in the 4th round, it's a good game for Wesley. Obviously coming from a gimmicky scheme where the numbers are going to look a little bit inflated. But, you look at the tape, man, he is an incredibly intriguing option. He has the speed to be able to get a lot of separation in the NFL. He has the size to just automatically win battles over smaller defensive backs. I think that he is a very, very good selection here in the 4th round, given the fact that he also is just exactly what the Buffalo Bills are lacking at that wide receiver spot, and a good complement to what they currently have in place. Going to their next 4th-round pick at 131, I was selecting Joe Jackson, defensive end from Miami. I've done a lot of tape on Joe Jackson as I've had him mocked to my Eagles in a couple times, and I think this is a good fit here for the Buffalo Bills. He's a rotational defensive end as a rookie. He had consistently high-level production at Miami in 3 years. He had 35 tackles for loss, 22 sacks. Really good against the run. He's well-rounded. He can affect the pass. He can affect the run. I think I'm just more so looking at the defensive ends currently on roster for the Buffalo Bills. Trent Murphy could be a cap casualty in 2020. The freeze with $8 million worth of cap. Shaq Lawson and Jerry Hughes, they're going to be free agents next season. So I think right now is the year you start planning depth. You start planning moves like that, like a year in advance. So you had them on the roster. You get them on a strength and conditioning program, especially someone like Joe Jackson. His weight has fluctuated throughout his career. When he was lighter, he was obviously a lot more explosive. And then when he put on more weight, he became a little bit better in the run game, but slowed up a little bit, affecting the quarterback. I think, forward-thinking move. Select Joe Jackson in the 4th round, have him develop a little bit, get him on the field as a rookie, as a rotational. But then, if he develops, if he shows flashes, it makes it easy to move on from Jerry Hughes, who's going to be 32 and probably want a nice 2-year deal to ride off in the sunset, or Shaq Lawson, a 2016 first-round pick that has struggled to really establish himself. Moving into the 5th round at pick 147, I was selecting Devin Singletary, running back from Florida Atlantic. They have the goddamn oldest running back room in the league. They need to get some youth into there. Devin Singletary is going to slip a little bit after a pretty bad combine. You never want to have someone slip too far because of a combine, but it was pretty bad. One of the slowest 40-yard dash times, didn't look explosive in many of the drills. His shuttle, where clearly if you watch his tape, his agility is top-notch. Even he just didn't look agility. Some guys are that's just what he is going to be. He's going to be a guy that's never going to test athletically well. When he puts those pads on, he's going to make you miss. And I think that when you look at what's currently going on in the running back room for the Buffalo Bills, you got Frank Gore, you got LaShawn McCoy, you got Chris Ivory. That's 170 years old combined age for these running backs. There's no who's the light at the end of the tunnel. Who's the guy that can learn behind these legends and then potentially take over as that top dog? I think a guy like Devin Singletary can do that. He has excellent agility. Like I said, he has that make you miss type trait about him. He had crazy production at Florida Atlantic in 3 years, 4,700 total yards, 67 touchdowns. And I think bringing him in, not expecting him to carry the load right away, just have him kind of be a spot starter, spot player, and develop and learn a thing or two from Frank Gore and LaShawn McCoy, two guys that might have a chance to make the Hall of Fame when it all said and done, is only going to be more beneficial to Devin Singletary this early in his career. And I like the upside, especially 2 years down the road, to potentially be the lead featured back for the Buffalo Bills. Going to the next 5th round pick at 158, I'm selecting Sutton Smith, linebacker from Northern Illinois. He's an absolute mismatch at linebacker. He has the size that makes you think he'll have to play inside, but I think his skill set is best used as, rotational Swiss Army type knife guy. You can play on the inside, you can play on the outside. Either way, get creative with him, and that is exactly what Sean McDermott can and will do if he makes the Sutton Smith selection. And I honestly, when I'm looking at the Bills roster, I think he could take over Lorenzo Alexander's role, at least be groomed to take over that in the future. I mean, he is undersized. He's 6 feet tall, 235 pounds, but he is scary production. His combine was all right. His combine for his size was a little bit below average, but it wasn't a terrible combine. So I think from that standpoint, he's not going to put up eye-popping numbers to get overdrafted. But when you really look at the tape, he's a machine. He's a tackling machine. In 2 years at Northern Illinois, 58 tackles for loss, 30 sacks, 7 forced fumbles. Like, that is just unheard of production at that position. And, while he's a small edge, like I said, you groom him to be Lorenzo Alexander's replacement, because obviously Lorenzo Alexander's like 37, probably has 1 more year left before he hangs off into the sunset. So again, kind of like Joe Jackson, a forward-thinking move, get a guy in right away and build for the future. Moving into the 6th round at pick 181, I was selecting Hamp Cheevers, cornerback from Boston College. He's a nickel cornerback. I think when I look at the roster, I'm not exactly sure who played nickel between Teron Johnson and Levi Wallace. I'm going to guess one of those guys did. But ultimately, Hamp Cheevers brings that in. 5'9", 170 is ideal size. Now, I have questions about his tackling. Obviously, when you look at a nickel corner, they usually have one sort of build, which Hamp Cheevers does fit, but they also can tackle, and I can't really attest that tackling is a strength of his game. But he did have a pretty good combine, running a 4.52, 39-inch vertical, and he's coming off a massive year at Boston College with 7 interceptions. So I just look currently at this Buffalo Bills secondary, and I think nickel corner could use more depth, could use more of a challenge for the starting spot come opening day, and I think a guy like Hamp Cheevers in the 6th round can do that, and you get that in the 6th round, that is an excellent value pick here for the Bills. Moving into the 7th round, they have 2 7th-round picks. First up at 225, I'm selecting Kendall Joseph, linebacker from Clemson. Obviously, coming from Clemson, he's coming from a good program. He has a solid career, 3-year starter there, won a lot of games. He's your traditional undersized, well, not traditional. Seems like it's traditional now, but he's now in the NFL, almost every roster, you have that undersized cover linebacker. And I think ultimately just good depth behind Tremaine Edmonds, can chip in on special teams if he can tack on in that final 53. Right now behind Tremaine Edmonds, you have Julian Stanford, who's always been like a perennial backup. You got Corey Thompson, Dion Lacey. I think ultimately a guy like Kendall Joseph might be able to beat out those guys for some of that depth roles and ultimately make impacts on special teams. And then finishing up at pick 228 in the 7th round, I'm selecting Lester Cotton, offensive guard from Alabama. He's a powerful run blocker, and ultimately I think he's cheap offensive line depth with a chance to make the final 53 over, Ike Boder. You got John Feliciano. Vladimir DeCoste is kind of on a, expensive veteran contract. So just getting a guy in the 7th round that might be able to beat those out on a affordable 7th round rookie deal. Just more so looking at that from a roster building cap scenario for the Buffalo Bills. So there you go, guys. That is the 7th-round mock draft for the Buffalo Bills, starting with Ed Oliver, finishing with Lester Cotton, and everything in between. Bills fans in particular, let me know if you agree or disagree with any of the picks here in the comment section below. As always, if your first time stopping by, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button, smash the like button if you enjoyed, and until next time, it's C4 saying peace out.